Hi everyone, and welcome to another StewTalk video. So my name's Ian Abelson. I'm the Stewardship Manager for Six Rivers Land Conservancy. We are a non-profit 5-county land conservancy. We protect natural areas in Oakland, Lapeer, Genesee, St. Clair, and Macomb counties in southeast Michigan. So for this video, I want to focus a little bit on owling. So owling is sort of a subset of birding. But unfortunately for owling, something like this isn't always the most useful tool that you have in your back pocket. Your most useful tool, a lot of the times, is this. So, finding owls out in Michigan isn't necessarily an easy thing to do during the day. It can be an easy thing to do during the day. You can get super lucky and just happen across something like a barred owl in a forest calling at you, but a lot of the times you need to put a little more work into it. So for this video, I'm going to start by talking about sort of owls in general, and I'll talk a little bit about the 3 owls that we're going to focus on for the video. I'm going to talk about methods for owling, and I'm going to finish up by talking about etiquette and the stuff that you need to make sure you're doing if you are going to go owl in Michigan. So if you have any intention of owling, please watch this entire video to the end so that you can hear all that etiquette and the kinds of stuff that we can do to make sure that this is a safe activity both for us but also for the birds. So you've probably seen owls before. You may not have seen wild owls before. We have a couple of species scattered throughout Michigan, but 3 of the most common ones in southeast Michigan are screech owls, barred owls, and great horned owls. Now, if you're interested in seeing a captive bird of any of those 3 species, I recommend you check out the Stage Nature Center in Troy. They have representatives of all 3 of those species in captivity there. But in terms of owls in general, they range a lot in size. The screech owls are only about that big. The great horned owls, which are the largest ones you'll see in this region, are more like that big. They all live sort of typically in forests or in prairies. They are a species that doesn't often do very well too near humans. There are owls that will do well in the suburbs, but for a lot of them, you're going to need to go somewhere a little more natural. So, screech owls, the little tiny ones, they are a small owl in Michigan that eats a lot of really small rodents, or actually a lot of insects too. We don't typically think of owls as being insect eaters. For the little screech owls, a reasonably sized insect is actually a pretty good meal. Next up, the medium-sized owls, maybe around that big, are the barred owls. So barred owls tend to be a deep woods owl. They've got really pretty plumage, really pretty feathers. They're streaked with brown and white, and they tend to be very they're homebodies. They stay in one spot a lot. So a lot of the times, barred owl will barely ever leave a 6 square mile area in its life. So that means that if you happen to find a barred owl, if you happen to know where one is, a lot of the times you can go visit that bird over and over again. Now lastly, the great horned owls are kind of the ones that we think of as like a classic owl. They're pretty big. They've got those feather tufts. Those are not their ears. They're just tufts of feathers on the side of their head. And they've got that really striking face and those really bright eyes. Now, any of these owls will tend to stay in a tree very quietly and wait. If they're hunting, they're just sitting high up in a tree and waiting for something small and furry to scurry by. So that's one of the things that makes them really hard to find. They're also all nocturnal. They tend to be most active at night or maybe at dusk or dawn. A lot of people who do owling will do it at dusk or dawn because it's a good compromise between when the birds will be active and when we've still got a little bit of light to see. So, if you're just going to go looking for an owl, you're going to need a lot of luck to find one. But you can kind of tip the scales in your favor a little bit with recordings of owl calls. And that's one of the reasons that etiquette is so important when you're out owling. because playing an owl call will automatically cause a certain response in an owl, whether it's a territorial response of like, hey, I need to defend my territory, or whether it's a mating response of, hey, I'm going to go look for this other owl somewhere in my territory. And if we're out observing these birds, we don't want to disturb them too much in this way. But you can play owl calls off of your phone. You can have a Bluetooth speaker, which is the method that we typically use if we're doing owling programs out on our preserve. Or if you happen to be able to drive really close to a woodlands, you can absolutely connect your phone to the Bluetooth speaker in your car and be able to play the calls that way. So, we'll start with the screech owl. So that trill, that kind of haunting trill, that does not sound like what we think of as an owl. That is not a hoot hoot. But that's the sound that the screech owls typically make. And that is the sort of call that you're going to want to play to try and encourage one to maybe show itself. One more thing that I want to mention before I move on to the other two owl calls. If you are owling and you know which owl is nearby, then I really recommend only playing that owl's call. But if you're going to a forest or a natural area of some sort and you have no idea what owls are in the area, make sure that you start with the smallest owl and move your way up. Because if you play a great horned owl's call and then you play a screech owl's call, there's no way that screech owl is going to make itself known. It just heard a great horned owl. And the larger owls will absolutely prey on the younger owls, especially on their young. So, we're going to move now to the barred owl. And the barred owl has a fun mnemonic for their call. It's "Who cooks for you?" So, listen and see if you can hear barred owl saying that. Who cooks for you? Who cooks for you all? Go on. Now that sound, the barred owls are actually one that you may hear sometimes during the day. Barred owls do have a tendency to call during the day a little more than the other owls do. As far as I know, we're not entirely sure why. They're just a little more active during the day than most owls are. Now this last one may be a little tricky to hear off the phone, but this is the great horned owl. And if that one's difficult to hear in the video, I'll put a link to the Cornell Lab of Ornithology's entry on the great horned owl. You should be able to find some calls on that website that you can play too. Great horned owl is easily the biggest owl that you're likely to be able to find in southeast Michigan on like an average day like this. But again, they're the biggest owl, so if you're calling for a great horned owl, you have already sort of given up on calling for a screech owl or a barred owl. I personally have had the most success calling for barred owls using this method, but I know people have used it for screech and great horn too and had some success. So in terms of etiquette and the stuff that we want to do to make sure we disturb the bird as little as possible, first of all, research any bird that you're going to be calling for, because you don't want to call for them during the nesting or the mating season. During the nesting season especially, they've got to be spending all of their energy looking for food and taking care of their young, and we don't want to make them expend any energy defending their territory from a cell phone. So that's step one. Step two is to not do this too often at any time of the year. If you are owling in an area, make sure you only do it once a month max. Because once again, we don't want to disturb that bird too much. We don't want it to spend too much time worrying about the calls that we're playing. So make sure you do both of those things. And the other recommendation is just make sure you're ready for some time out in a natural field at night. Make sure you have a flashlight, food if you're going to need it. Make sure you have water, stuff like that. Alright, so I think that's what I've got for this video. If you're interested in owling, there are certainly more resources out there written resources that will help you get an even better idea of the methods you can use to go about it. So thanks very much. Again, my name's Ian Abelson. If you're interested in learning more about Six Rivers Land Conservancy, you can visit our website at sixriversrlc.org. I'll put that link in the description of the video as well. And if you want to support our mission of protecting natural areas in southeast Michigan, you can find a tab to donate to Six Rivers Land Conservancy on the website as well. Thanks everyone so much for watching. Stay safe and stay healthy, and take care.